welcome to Next Level Up. Today's guest is Morgan Murray. He has Tech That Heals. He's going to talk today about how Clean Circle brings community, coaching, and hope to addiction recovery. He's built on a human-first recovery app that bridges digital connection, peer support, and affordable access to care. Morgan, it's great to have you with us. How are you doing today?
Thanks for having me. Doing fantastic. Very excited to do this podcast.
Great to have you here. So in our normal format, right, we start with a little bit of the past. So just let's kind of, you don't have to go back to when you're 8, but let's start at the beginning. How did this all kind of get set up as, when we'll talk about Clean Circle a little bit, but what was the lead up to all that?
Sure. So this is a platform for people that are, attempting to get sober or stay sober. So back in 2014 is when I began my recovery journey. And back then there wasn't applications like Clean Circle. It was pretty much you go to a room with nobody you know, and you tell them, "Hey, I think I might have a problem," and that's kind of what it was. And it's been that way for many, many years. And so I saw an opportunity to essentially change that and make it a little less frightening to get help.
I got it. So I love, obviously, a personal story. I don't love that you had to go through that, but I love that your own recovery was the precipice for, well, wait a minute, there's something missing here. So I think you were in a tech background even back then, right?
So I grew up programming. I grew up building computers. Back at that particular time, I was actually in the sports world. So I usually do sales. So it doesn't really matter what sector, but there's a lot of drinking in sales. There's a lot of money. There's a lot of going out, and that was part of the environment. So when I first got into recovery, I had to think, do my personal goals line up with my professional goals? And Clean Circle was ultimately, born years later, but each year was kind of a step towards that ultimate goal.
Yeah, I got it. And I think what was really compelling was you kind of had some ideas for it. You even had some stuff on paper. And then, I want to talk about a little bit, not to bring back up bad memories, but what was really the thing that got you started on Clean Circle to actually start bringing it into reality instead of just having it live like a good idea or a vision?
So I'd actually gone to it was a therapy meeting down in Parker, and after I got out, I just got out a piece of paper and came up with the general outline. So the general outline was literally probably only made sense to me and the developers I gave it to, but it was three circles. Essentially, it had Clean Circle, it had coaches, and it had peers, and a bunch of random crap under it. And basically, that night, I worked nonstop on it. The next day, I was talking to a few people about it, and they had mentioned that someone had passed away that was in the recovery community. Naturally, I asked who it was, and it turns out it was one of my good friends. So I left lunch, kind of, walked around the building a little bit, came back in. I went to my software development team from a previous venture and said, "Hey, I want you guys to take some time off." And, of course, they're excited and kind of confused. But then I was like, "I have a different project." And
Yeah.
then they're very confused. They're, why would we make a sobriety app? This doesn't make sense. This doesn't seem like it's going to make money. And I gave them a little bit of the backstory, and they actually gave me a design within 24 hours, which is pretty unheard of, and it was pretty powerful, and it was very exciting. So that was the start of Clean Circle.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, again, not the greatest of circumstances, but I mean, it really sounds, and from your story, from what we talked about and what you talked about, Lucas, was almost like a calling. Like, hey, I got this idea, and I can't count how many times as another tech guy, right? Like I've had really good ideas that I thought would be a gap or something or whatever, and then it just lives like that. So it's awesome to see that getting reality. So bring me up to kind of the present. Where are you guys at with the app today? Like what's going on? Where are you guys building towards?
Sure. So it's fully functioning. So if you were to go on your iPhone or your Android and type in Clean Circle Sober Network, it's going to pop up. We have 5 stars. But we're getting ready to release a version 3. So we've released 2 versions. The first 2 versions essentially give peers access, and it's totally free. They can write journal entries. They can track their sobriety time. If something happens, like it does in life, you can reset that time. You have quotes on there. And one of the cool features is you can add peers too. And a lot of people like to talk to peers. They don't want to talk to therapists or coaches. And so you can send them a friend request. And if that's mutually accepted, you guys can chat. So that's 100% free. If that's not enough, we offer recovery coaches. So right now we have around 200 coaches with all different types of certifications. I found out early on there's thousands of them.
Hmm.
But it's pretty cool. So if you're struggling with something, you can type it in and maybe that keyword pops up on somebody's, bio for their coach
Yeah,
and they specialize, let's say, in stress management, or maybe it's something else, right? But that pops up and you can book that coach. So those sessions can be free. They can cost money. It really depends on that coach. But every coach is required to do a minimum of 3 sessions each month and all that money that's made from it, it's very small because it is, a nonprofit, but we
yeah,
circle it back. So we give sober livings half of it. So every month we send somebody to sober living. We sent our first one this past month.
that's
Um,
great.
yeah, and then the other 2.5%, because we take 5%, goes to software development. And mostly that goes into maintenance. And so if you've never paid for an app, which I hadn't before, I found out the hard way that when people log in, when they scroll, when they send messages, there's a price on that, and it's pennies. But when you do pennies times thousands, they add up.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we use the remainder of that money to pay for the maintenance, and then also the version 3 that's coming out. And so the version 3, I would describe it as more engaging. So it's going to have live chats, very similar to Slack. It's going to work very, very. I won't say it's going to mirror Facebook, but it's
Hmm.
going to feel more like a sober social network.
Got
Um,
it.
which the main reason we're doing that is because our Slack, we have around 300 people on it, and they love it. Trust me, they message me 24/7 on that Slack. So we're phasing out the Slack and building our own Slack within the app in hopes that that increases the engagement, but also, just like we're talking, be like, hey man, like I know you're struggling. I found this app. You can chat to people for free. Why don't you download it? So something along those lines.
Yeah, it's really great. And again, I love the fact that I'm sure the skeptics were like, "Oh, he just found something he wants to monetize, and the money's, like most nonprofits, got to keep the lights on." And to your point, AWS is not free, unfortunately. Again, it's not super expensive, but it definitely is a cost structure. So it's great that you're doing that, but more importantly, really using most of the funds to circle back into sobriety and get people the need that they or the services they need that they may not be able to afford themselves. Really amazing. And
Yeah.
go ahead.
And I think that's one of the biggest things that appeals to peers and even coaches is that we don't profit on it because there's a lot of rehabs, a lot of sober livings that do make a lot of money. It's a very profitable field. So we make sure that we don't make a profit on it, and that if somebody can't pay for sober living or they can't pay for rehab or anything, maybe they're homeless and all they have is a phone, they can
Yeah,
access this for free. So it really removes that barrier.
yeah, I got it. And then can you want to talk a little bit some of the structures you have that go beyond again the clinical or sober home type facilities inside the app?
Sure. So with the version 3 that's going to be released fairly soon, it's going to give peers access to a lot more options. And so what that means, besides like a live wall, live chats, is you're also going to
Mhm.
be able to do small groups, which is basically a recovery coach with 6 to 8 people. And
Yeah,
so those 6 to 8 people are going to be from that recovery coach's, I guess, coach's roster per se. So that coach is going to
right.
be, hey, these 6 to 8 people, they're going to work really, really well together. And oftentimes, at least from my personal experience, small groups are a lot more fun. They're less expensive. They're not stressful. It's not as awkward as telling someone one on one. And it just feels better because you have other people there that have been through what you've been through and collectively you're all coming to a common goal. So that's one of the biggest features that I'm very excited about. But in general, it's just like any other social thing that you might be a part of, right? I'm part of a dog walking group, right? We all have Australian Shepherds and I love it. Same thing, like with Clean Circle, we have a sober fantasy league, right? So just because it's sober, doesn't mean it's less fun. Doesn't mean it's weird. Doesn't mean it's awkward. It's basically the same thing as, going to the bar and talking with people. You just remove the alcohol.
Yeah, I get that. And obviously, in some way, you're kind of attacking engagement and keeping people enrolled, but not to be dramatic about it, but it is kind of life and death. So
Mhm.
how do you deal with like the emotional side of that for yourself? I mean, there's a clear reason for doing this, so I would imagine seeing users drop off, you know, hurts a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, with anything like this in recovery, regardless where you are, or who you are, or how many years you have, I mean, you could drop off and you could be dead tomorrow. And
Yeah,
that's very drastic, and people watching this might, think I'm exaggerating, but I'm not.
yeah,
And it's scary, and so that's one of the reasons we still have the Slack, is because until we get that full engagement, if they need to reach out, we have time, or we have 10 different time zones in that Slack. So when they reach out, they can talk to somebody. We also do our version of a AA meeting or CA or NA meeting. It's called a sober circles meeting. And basically what that is it's a free meeting. Usually a coach will run it. Um, but all you do is talk. You talk about your day. You talk about what's going on versus not talking, not engaging, and then ultimately going back to your drug of choice or alcohol, and, potentially, losing everything you've worked for.
yeah, I get it. I mean, again, it sometimes I've got cousins that have passed away from heroin, et cetera. So it some for people that have not dealt with it, it can sound hyperbolic, but it really isn't. I mean, it really is a struggle, and it's a struggle that can bite ferociously. So I really appreciate what you're doing for that. So a quick question on the nerd side, like what's been the biggest lift in the process for you, other than it sounds like this might be your first real foray into mobile work, but like what else has kind of been a surprise or more challenging than you would have expected?
Um, in terms of the developmental side, I mean, there's a lot. This is a big learning curve for me, which is why I brought on an entire software development team. I
Yeah.
would say some of the biggest things is how much work goes into small changes. Because
Mhm.
when you're on the customer side, you're like, oh, I need A, working because it's affecting B, and it's going to give
Yeah.
me the result of C. But really, it's to do that, you have to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. You go all the way down the alphabet, and then you
Yeah.
finally get your result. So what I would suggest, if anybody's looking into software development or has interactions with software developers, just be nice to them. There's a lot of work they do on the back end that people don't know about, and it might be as simple as maybe a picture shows up wrong, or the text is wrong, or the button doesn't click the right way you want it.
Yeah.
All those things require a different language that most people don't know, and it can be a lot of different languages. So there's some brilliant minds out there, especially even behind Clean Circle. Our software team is awesome, and I try to give them as much credit as possible. But really, they're the brains behind it. I'm more of the visionary, so more credit should be given to them, in my opinion.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I'll probably take that snippet to send to a few of my customers. Same thing. It's like, I know you just want a button, but it's more than just the button. Just trust
Yeah,
me.
it's crazy. And a lot of times it might not be within the budget, right? Because one of the
Yeah.
other things I learned is you have to prioritize everything. And when you have hundreds and hundreds of people, and they all have good ideas, right? They're like, oh, that's a good idea. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
But when you have 200 good ideas and you have money for 10 good ideas, then that's where priorities
Yeah.
come to shift.
Yeah. It's really great. Um, question. I just had a thought and then it went out of my head. All right. Moving on.
Sure.
Um, so looking ahead, the next 2 to 3 years, what do you think are your biggest opportunities? What's success look like for you when again you're not as worried about monetization or some kind of 7x exit, you know, building a unicorn?
Sure. I would say the biggest opportunities for us when you take money and all that stuff is obviously getting all of these features developed. But the next step would be integrating this into either rehabs, sober livings, or some type of partnerships where when they leave that facility, that program, they have an app on their phone that they know, if shit goes really, really bad, I can look at my phone before I take that drink or take that hit, whatever it is, and maybe that will stop me. And maybe it doesn't, or maybe it at least gives them, one more moment where they, hey, maybe this isn't a good idea. Maybe I should talk to somebody. That's the biggest thing where Clean Circle can help because there's no other sobriety program out there that you can just pick up your phone, you can log in, you click a button, and you can talk to somebody. One of the biggest features that we're going to have is, let's say, for example, let's say if you were in recovery, John, you're like,
Yeah.
man, I really, really want a beer. And you go all the way to the bar, you're about to do it, and then you press this new button we're going to add, which basically means, hey, I'm about to relapse. Well, all of your friends that you've added are going to be notified and they're going to reach out to you.
Mm.
So yes, you still might go and have that beer, but you're going to have to tell, 20 people what you're doing. Which odds are, if enough people care about you that much, you're probably going to change your mind and probably walk out of the bar. So I think that will be one of the biggest game changers that we offer. And kind of like I said, it's a small thing, but it can be a big impact.
Yeah, it's really good. I mean, again, to your point, I don't know that it'll solve everybody's problems, but
Right.
I imagine that feeling of needing or a loneliness, et cetera, is a large reason that pushes people back over the edge. So having the ability to kind of have that 911 button to say, hey, I'm about to do, part of me really wants to go do this thing, and the part of me wants to stay sober doesn't
Right.
help you fight that guy and win. So really, really awesome. Can't wait to hear it. And then in all that, what do you think stands in your? What's the biggest thing standing in your way?
The biggest thing standing in our way would probably be the money. It's very expensive to add new features. And as we grow, they get more expensive. That's the the irony, right? We'll take, 5 steps forward and, 4 or 5 back and keep doing that. So the biggest thing is we're going to be looking into more grants. We're going to be looking into, like I said, partnerships. So for example, if a sober living wanted to partner with us, we could do an API where they're integrated into the application and then they pay us monthly or something like that. So there's definitely ROI that we can build for these potential partnerships, which in return gives them more clients, but also eliminates that financial burden for us.
Yeah, it's really great. I would definitely get you in touch with Josh, which we did just a little bit ago about Sober Buzz. I think you guys would definitely have a lot of synergy together with pushing towards sobriety across the planet, which I think again is a great thing to be focused on. So I really appreciate your purpose and what you're out to do, and
Yeah.
really appreciate your time today, man.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I watched that episode and I agree. I think anybody that's offering any type of sobriety for the most part is trying to help people, right? There's a lot of people try to find the bad in things, but if somebody's devoting time to help people get sober, there's probably a personal reason, a personal connection that you might not ever know. But I would just say, give them a chance, give them a
Yeah.
referral, give them a high, give them a high five, whatever it is.
And I know you hit it kind of midway through, but real quick before we leave, tell everybody where they can find it on their App Store or Google
Sure.
Play.
So if you go to your phone and you type in Clean Circle Sober Network, it will pop up. And so there's going to be, like I said, a new version in a couple weeks. But right now, you can add friends, you can do recovery coach meetings, and you can do messages. So it's a good way to track your time, and it's free, so you don't have to pay for anything.
And anybody else out there that's got friends or loved ones that are dealing with it, feel free to send them a link. Anything that can help, let's give them a shot.
Sure.
Morgan, really appreciate the time. Great, great story, man.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
All right, awesome. Great job.